Good morning. February 9th, 2023, regular board meeting, Magna Water District, 8885 West, 3500 South, the general office building, of course, Magna, Utah. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and here with us today, we got Clint Dilly, Nathan Bracken, Dallas Henline, Jeff White, Mick Sudbury, Danny Stewart, Leal Fitzgerald, Andrew, you're laughing at me, Assumption, Raymond Mondragon, and Trevor Andre. So I'd like to welcome the public and guests. Will everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Does anybody here today have a conflict of anything on the agenda? Okay, see none. Does anybody want to address the board on anything? Okay, approval of common consent items.
Let me read that.
Go for it.
Common consent items. Minutes of the regular board meeting held January 19th, 2023. Who second that?
Go ahead.
I'll second it.
It's been motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Expenses for January 9th to February 1st, 2023. General expenses, $477,989.61. Science Bank bond payment of $83,282.19.
I'll second it.
Been motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Clint, I'm gonna turn item G over to you.
Great. We got the employee recognition for Chet Draper and Justin Long. If we could have the operations managers talk about each of their employees. Dallas, or that does not go ahead, Dallas. Dallas, do you want to start?
Mr. Chairman, we'd like to recognize Chet Draper. Last week, he was able to pass his water distribution grade 3 exam.
Wow.
Chet reaches his 2-year mark in April of this year, and Chet's been able to complete distribution grades 1 through 3, wastewater treatment grade 1, and water treatment grade 1 also. I think that just goes to show how committed Chet is and how driven he is to be a good employee for the district. Chet always does whatever he's asked. He's always got a great attitude. And, you know, when we get these operators cross-trained with different certifications, they can be used on both sides of the district. So that's what we're shooting for. And thank you very much, Chet.
And I also want to add to that, he's also a good man.
Great man.
Great work, Chet.
Also want to recognize Justin Long for the leadership and willing to step and volunteer for the younger guys in training of the employees on all the equipment. And that would be about it.
We wanted to bring Justin in. He's part of our first safety committee that's developing a safety policy manual that Andrew's getting together. And from what I understood, when Andrew was telling me, Justin was real vocal and stepped up and provided a lot of, as you know, he's known for being quiet.
I just want to thank him. As we embarked on our first meeting with the safety committee, I was a little bit concerned about where it was going to go with it being the first one, and Justin really stepped up. He had a lot of good things to add, and then he had a lot of insights that we're going to be able to put to work. And then he also volunteered to become a certified trainer so that we can keep our employees trained on the equipment.
And specifically on what I liked hearing was trench safety. Yeah. And really, we have a lot of work we can do there. And I think it says a lot about Justin to notice that and say, hey, I can step up and help with that. And so we wanted to bring him in and let the board know how much we appreciate our employees. Because the safety really comes, it's driven, if it's successful, it comes from the employees, right? Because they're the ones that are putting themselves at risk,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And so to have employees that are engaged and it's coming from the ground up, I think we're gonna be more successful than a top-down.
And also too, Justin, I want to compliment you too, where you're not afraid to speak up. And that's what we want our employees to be able to do, is if we got an issue, they need to go to their managers, speak up, you know, and we as the board need to hear this stuff because we want to make whatever we need to do the best we can be here at Magnum Water. And, again, I appreciate you and all your hard work. And I've known you for a long time too, and you're a great man also, so.
I got some feedback from Dominion Energy, and they were saying some of the other water companies in the valley, they would have a water spill or whatever, and then they would turn it over to the Dominion and say, okay. And they said, it's just horrible, the safety violations. I mean, they're just not being safe in the hole, so trench safety is a big deal.
Agreed. Yeah, we have a lot of room to improve there, and I think
We've
We
got
got some
a
good-
gift card for Justin, if you wanna come up and get it, Justin.
I want to thank you, Justin, you're doing a great job.
Going the right direction, I think.
And I worked with Justin. I know how he speaks up. Right, Justin?
Yeah, sometimes. I've learned to get better with my
You
mouth.
said I worked like an old farmer guy.
Is that what he told you?
Yeah, I was an old farmer type guy.
that's a compliment.
It was. We're trying to fix a tire.
Yeah, I'm glad it helped. We'll keep going in that direction.
Great. Thanks, you guys.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Justin. See you, bud.
See ya.
Okay, moving on, let's go to the department, are we gonna go, okay, let's go ahead and we're gonna move.
J.
Under J, we're gonna move that forward. So come on, if you feel comfortable just sitting there and,
I'm Jay.
yes.
I've got some handouts. I'm sorry, I don't think I have enough for
That's all right,
everybody,
sure.
so you can kind of share.
We can just share one here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
So twice each year, I come out here with your executive group and review the 401k and the pension plan. And so what I handed you was the minutes for the last meeting we had, which was held on December 1st of last year. Just a couple of items to go over there. Every time we meet regarding the 401k, we review a list of investment options in the plan. So the 401k plan, each employee can self-select the investments. We need to make sure we have a good menu for them to choose from. And that was reviewed. If there are any investments that have issues, we put them on a watch list. That watch list is the third page in that handout. This period, there was one investment that we wanted to replace, and that's listed under the proposed actions. We were replacing the American Funds Fundamental Investors Fund, with the Vanguard 500 Index Fund. And that is in process right now. In addition to that, we reviewed the investments for the pension plan. The pension plan is not directed by the employees. It's managed by me and by the board. But we moved the equity exposure in the pension plan from 5% to 10%. The remaining assets are in a guaranteed investment fund that has a guaranteed principal and a guaranteed interest rate. So it's a very conservatively managed fund, and only twice in all of these years as the plan's 0% equities to 5% in March of 2020. Turned out to be really good timing there. That was the market low during the pandemic. And then again, at the end of 2022, we changed 5% to 10%. So still very conservative, but a little bit of allocation.
What was the reason? Just because you seen gains in the first move from 0 to 5? And so you decided to go to 10, or?
Yeah, so in the first move, there were really tremendous gains because the market had dropped very quickly, and it dropped about 34% of the stats. We thought, well, that's worth the risk of committing a little bit of money. And that one worked out very well as the market quickly rebounded. 2022 was a terrible year for the stock market, and it got near its lows at that point in time, and we thought it may be a good time to go ahead and grow a little bit more.
So you can move that every year? Is it a yearly thing? You can move it up or down?
Move at any time,
Oh,
but it just seemed like the right opportunity during that to commit a little bit more money.
Do you remember the figure of how much that initial move accounted? It was pretty substantial.
It was substantially, I don't remember exactly, but it
Yeah.
was probably around 40% gain.
oh, wow.
On that 5%, which, yeah.
And then the S&P 500 in January was up a little over 6%, just in the last. So far, both of those changes have been pretty good timing.
And obviously that doesn't, what that does in terms of a positive for the board and the team is it doesn't provide any additional benefit to the people that take the pension, but it makes the cost of the pension less, right? Because that contribution, it's being satisfied by a higher percentage of the, maybe you can make this a little clearer.
Well, that is it, is that any improvement in the returns of the pension plan means there's less money that the district needs to put into that plan to meet its.
That's
So,
a benefit.
so it becomes less costly to maintain the same level of benefits if,
Okay.
so that's why it's a good move for the district. Well,
you better put 30% in then, so we.
but obviously you have to manage that risk, which I think Berkeley's done a good job.
Still an enormously conservative plan. With only 10% of those assets in equities at all.
Okay.
And that's all I have unless you have questions.
Okay. Sounds good.
You guys okay with it?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, thank you for your time, and thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Okay, Clint, we're gonna move on to the general manager's report.
Okay, you have a copy of the report in your packets. I'll just highlight a couple things. On staffing, we have a separate agenda item, so we'll wait and hold off on the staff engineering
Okay.
discussion. A couple of other things I just wanted to get on your radar and kind of get a feel from the board, things that we're looking at. We've had quite a bit of discussion about investigating, exploring some help for the mechanic. We've had quite an increase in the amount of facilities. So the number of pumps, the number of trucks, the number of equipment has substantially increased. Andrew, do you have any of that information?
Yeah, I have some numbers. So since bringing Bob in as the district mechanic, we've added 12 pumps and motors, 2 mowers, 2 backhoes, a loader, 6 trucks, a side-by-side, an easement machine, 3 chopper pumps, 3 high-flow pumps, 2 step screens, 2 grit chambers, 2 drum screens, a roller, 2 trailers, a vac truck, a snowplow and salter, air compressor at the EDR, an air compressor at the sewer, chillers at Barton and at the booster stations, which add up to 7 total extra chillers, and 3 generators. So obviously the workload's increased substantially. And then part of the reason we started looking into this is succession planning.
Yeah, I think, obviously, we've got quite a bit more facilities to manage and maintain. We've got an increase in the scope, so we have, grown not only in number, but in geographical location and area of these facilities and where they're located as we've expanded our system. So it's something that we wanted to explore and get a feel from the board. Obviously, when a situation like that arises, I don't know if everybody around here knows Bob. Bob's constantly busy. He's always working on something, and we think he's a dedicated employee, and he has recently expressed some concerns over keeping up with the workload. So it's something that we thought we would explore. We've also had some times where we're competing for his availability on different sides of the operation. So he's working on the water side, working on something, and we have a need at the wastewater plant. And sometimes that need isn't necessarily urgent, but it gets delayed until we can make it happen. So the question becomes, obviously we sacrifice somewhere, and oftentimes that's preventative maintenance, right? When you're constantly putting out fires, it can become quite difficult to do as much preventative maintenance.
So before I make a stand on this, I want to go see what we're talking about out in the field. But second off is, we've got leased vehicles. Why don't we contract out to get our oil changes?
It's an option.
I mean, you know, when we start hiring these people, it all comes with a cost.
It does.
It all comes with benefits. It costs taxpayer money. And I just think, I understand that we're growing and all this stuff, but there's some of this stuff that I think that we can contract out and save money.
We certainly can.
And I don't know how the two board members feel about this, but I just think on oil changes, I mean, the trucks are under warranty. Let's get an account with somebody to change our oils.
I think that's a good.
One thing that I worry about sometimes, like if you're gonna take it in somewhere and have the oil changed, I think we need to look at somebody that can come out and do it.
Right.
Because it costs us time to have somebody go in, drop it off, then go back and pick it up, and so it take two guys to go do that.
Yeah.
When, you know, the oil change is pretty fast, but, I'm just wondering if that's something we could look at.
Certainly in this evaluation, if the board wants to continue evaluating, we're not saying we need.
Well, yeah, I'd like to go out, I'd like to go out and
continue
see.
evaluating that and come back with some of these concerns?
I'd like to go out in the field and see what we're doing, and I know Bob does our pumps, and he does this, and he does that. Is there a way around it? That we
Well-
contract some of this stuff out?
Well, I was kinda thinking too, Bob's doing pumps and stuff, maybe we need to have another division guy that just takes care of our waterworks stuff.
Good.
Because then that would let Bob concentrate back on preventive maintenance and stuff for.
And that's
the
what
equipment.
some of the vision might be, is this would be an apprentice position with Bob looking to move on in 5 to 7 years. This person would be an apprentice, learning the job underneath Bob, so that at that stage, we wouldn't have such a loss in institutional knowledge. And he'd be able to pick up some of that lighter load stuff that you're talking about to let Bob focus more on.
And we have a guy we hired that has mechanic experience.
We do.
So
Now-
where's he work at?
He's down on the collections, right?
On the collections?
So I just wondered if we took the pump service, for instance, a guy would have a little more knowledge about what goes on with the pumps, a little more preventive on that, and leave the equipment, kind of separate it. But does that mean we need another service truck with a boom on it, a crane?
I think these are all good things that we need to explore if we want to go down this path.
Because I can see with what you named with all the equipment we've got and stuff, preventive maintenance is really a big thing.
And that's where the cheapest maintenance is. If we keep a motor from going out because we do preventative maintenance, we'd save a lot of cost.
Yeah.
And I know that that's been a
Well,
high
I hope we're
priority
doing
for the board.
preventive maintenance.
Yeah, that's a high priority that we've,
We always have.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like what the report I just read on where they did some vibration on something. If one of our guys had that was servicing the pumps, you know, they hear something, see something, they get more familiar. Bob is stretched so thin with everything he's taking care of. I'm just wondering if we need to fall back and have a guy just concentrate on our pumps, or even,
Yeah.
that could even include motors and pumps in the
Yeah,
in the
it could be
wastewater
a,
treatment.
I mean, that's the thing is, we could envision a different, it could be a completely different way. I like that of not keeping all the options on the table. What makes the most sense? Let's relook at this. You know, cause it might not be an apprentice. It might be somebody that's a separate
Yeah,
position is what I'm hearing.
that's what I was
from you,
thinking,
yeah.
because there's so much more focus on preventive maintenance in the wastewater treatment plant and in our pumps and wells and stuff.
Yeah.
I just think that, with all the equipment we have, that's almost two separate, jobs.
We can evaluate it that way too.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
let's look at that, because I think that guy may be a smaller service truck or something, but something that, that he gets used to that equipment running, hears something, goes, hey, that doesn't sound right, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, when you're around it all the time, you kind of get a clue on it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it just seems like with him, not that we've had a failure, but I'm just saying,
Well, when you.
So does Bob have
so when
enough
you think-
work up here in the garage that he can do full-time mechanic work? I mean, that's the question I have.
I don't
Does he
know.
have, how much
something we would-
during the week does he do mechanic work in the garage? And how much does he go out in the field
A
and
lot of the
do?
mechanicing is in the field,
Yeah,
from what I understand.
most of it, he's out in
He
the
does a
field.
lot down the wastewater plant.
Okay, I just wanna know
We need to
what,
get them the percentages
Yeah.
of his
where,
time.
where his time is.
yeah, that's a good idea, Nick.
I mean, how much
let's
time does he
look at
spend up in the garage working?
Yeah,
And how much does he work on?
we can get that in there.
Cause all this stuff comes with a cost.
Absolutely. And this, I don't think what this would be planning for next year.
Yes.
It's starting, hey, we think this is there's a need. We wanna
But
start
we don't wanna
planning
wait too
for-
long either.
Maybe, we might come back and say, hey,
There's a
but,
lot of maintenance down at the pump house.
but I think that's something we should
You know.
get gearing up for as well.
Well, I look at the vac trucks and stuff, they always need, a check over, you know? The stuff wears.
Yeah, from what I understand, those Vector trucks, they need to be greased and maintained
Yeah.
constantly.
Well, and I think our men do that too, we check them out every time we run them, I'm hoping.
Yeah, they have a pre-check before they go out.
So does it sound like we should continue exploring this, and obviously we will bring back some of this information in a future
Well,
board meeting?
yeah, I kind of think instead of apprentice mechanic, I'd say, I'm looking at possibly another guy that services just our wastewater water stuff, and then the equipment is separate. But, like Mick says, let's look at what he's doing now, but I guarantee as time goes on by next year, the equipment's gonna need a little more, preventive maintenance, so I think it's a good idea to look at that.
What do we
Yeah,
do
when
on our
you-
lease vehicles? Do we change our own oil? I mean,
Oh, we have been.
Yeah, we changed our own rules.
okay, and other than that, we don't have to do anything to them, right?
There's been,
Brakes and,
Yeah.
I mean,
Here and there.
normal
Normal.
maintenance, the
we have had a
30,000.
few, we have had some computer things that we've had to go take in.
Yeah, but I mean, that stuff's covered under warranty. Do me a favor when you get a chance, give me the mileages of all the vehicles, including your guys's.
Yeah, we haven't had that for a while, that's time.
Yeah, I wanna look at that.
Yeah, we'll get that to you. Okay, the other thing I wanted to get the board's input on, we've got, the structure of the front office team. They report directly to me as the general manager.
Okay.
It used to be different. There was, an intermediary that they reported to. We'd like to, with the, as we've had time to sort out the workload, it didn't work in the past, I think mainly because of workload. There was just too much being asked of a single employee. Now that we've got the workload separated out and more situated, and we've got a proper team in place with our accountant, she has quite a bit of indirect supervision that she's doing as the accountant of our front office team. And we think it makes sense to give her direct supervision. She's already performing a lot of these duties, and it would give her more teeth to make sure that things that we are looking at implementing are done, and someone that also has the direct expertise of the work that we're directing. So we think that could be a good thing for our team to improve workflow and continue our progression in the front office, and wanted to get, if the board had any feedback, any concerns.
The only concern I have is it gonna take away from what she's doing now and gonna have to babysit.
She's technically already been in charge out there. This just changes.
Well, she has indirect
Well, then-
supervision.
I know, but she's had that position before too.
The indirect supervision right now is, with the accountant Mandy. And the indirect supervision is workflow, basically.
Yeah. So this would add
So is there a
to,
reason why we wanna go this direction?
I think that there has been some situations where had she had full direct supervisor authority, they would have been handled quicker and would have been nipped in the bud a little sooner. We have full confidence in her that Mandy can do this, and
So Mandy would
it would be
be,
Mandy, and then Mandy would report to Leisle, as she currently is.
okay, oh, okay.
Yeah,
So Mandy would be the supervisor out there,
right.
and how does that work with the union?
I think it would be no different than a lead, which Mandy is making a lead wage already.
So we would have to notify the union that we're gonna have a lead person, but then you're gonna have to bid it.
It would not be any change in the classification. If we change classification, we would need to bid it.
But where you add more duties, then it's okay.
It would be, that's something we probably would need to consider.
Yeah, you might wanna talk to the union, because if you're gonna turn around and kinda make her be this, whatever,
Direct
she's the direct supervisor, so that's, as far as I'm concerned, you have to post that,
Yeah, so the only way to get around that is if you move Mandy into administrative.
right?
That's the only way.
Well, some of it will come down to qualifications.
Well, I know,
If
but,
nobody else meets those qualifications.
right, but you're still gonna have to
Yeah.
post it.
We might, yeah, that's a good point.
You're still gonna have to post it, because if you're gonna make her your lead person, it's like, hey. And like you said, no one, I don't think has the qualifications, but we just wanna make sure we cover
I
ourselves.
want to make sure we go through that right. All those changes.
I'll speak with Clint and Matt.
Well, if you move her into administrative though, it still makes it give her a little more freedom.
Yeah, there's potential there. We'll continue exploring that, and we'll come back to the board with some more information.
So if you moved her in administration,
It wouldn't be, I don't know if you're saying this, but it wouldn't be the management team. She would be like a lead, like, Steve Clark, Matt Scogerville. They're all
Yeah,
still
that's the
union.
equivalent, right?
But if you move her from administration, it would now be a salaried position.
Right.
That's correct.
But that would be different, which she still reports to the controller.
Right.
And so that's where it would make it a little tough for her to be on the management team and have a direct report on the management team. So we'll explore both of those options and come back to the board with a recommendation.
like I said, I definitely don't think there's anybody out there that can have the qualifications she has, but you're still gonna have to post the job, because if it,
Yeah, we'll redo that.
Which we'd be willing to.
Why don't we look at that cost if we move her on to administrative, what does that do
Okay,
for the top end?
we can do that.
Okay.
We'll explore both those options, but I do think it would be a positive to make that change.
Okay.
I think she's fully capable and to do that.
Let's say, you give her a little more, if you bring her into administrative, she gives her a lot more latitude. She surely has earned it, she's
Yeah.
worked pretty hard.
Yeah, she works her.
so give me what exactly she does.
you wanna,
She does the day-to-day operations, basically, so she is involved with, AP, she reviews, she assigns, and then, she assists the front when needed,
does all of the checks,
all
payroll?
of the AP, payroll.
Does she print the checks too, or is that still Mikey?
Mikey still prints that's a segregation of duties there.
She handles all of the, she
Meter
leads the
reading.
effort when we're doing invoicing, and she leads it, when we're doing shut-offs, and she leads, I mean, she's pretty much performing the lead responsibilities and directing a lot of the work. but
Without the authority.
Without the full authority.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying.
So why would we need to, if she's doing all this, why do we need to give her the authority? I'm not sure
I
about
think
that.
it comes down to, there are situations that come up where you have to give an employee direction, and they may feel like, oh, well, I'm gonna work around you,
Okay, I can see that.
you know? And if you're their direct supervisor, they can't do that.
Okay.
They have to work through you.
But the question I have there is keeping her as the lead person, you know, she's still a union person.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest problems that I have, and you probably can wear to this working in a union, is union don't tell on each other.
I have full confidence in Mandy's
Okay, but I'm
ability
just
to-
saying, you know how it is.
Yes, I
You
do.
worked in it, I know how it is.
I have
and
100% confidence in Mandy's ability to separate and
We had an incident back that the person retired that should have had some stuff done and they didn't do nothing about it. They didn't want to step on no toes and
Yeah, we haven't experienced that in the office, and it's a little bit more difficult with as much
Okay.
of the team in the office that is here and aware of everything that's going on. So that's been helpful. But good points. We'll,
I'm for it if the other two board members are what they want to do.
Yes.
we'll move forward with, presenting something
And
next time.
usually when your lead men, like Stevie and them guys, if there is a wrongdoing, they'll come up and, even if the guy don't like it, they stand up for the right things.
Yeah.
It isn't all union type thing, they stand up for the right things,
We've had specific isolated
so.
incidents, but we have resolved those, so.
And that's one of the things we gave that money too, so they would step up to
Yeah.
the plate and make sure if we got an issue, they need to kick it in the butt. And if not, they take it into their managers and let them deal with it.
Yeah.
And most of them do step up,
Yeah,
I feel.
I see it.
Okay, the other thing I wanted to highlight, on here before we move on is just wanted to make the board aware of a change that has been made from the Division of Drinking Water. They are classifying our treatment plant now as requiring a grade 4, operator that's direct responsible charge. That's not ever been required. And so fortunately, we have one operator, Rob Chaturka, that is grade 4, but he doesn't work in the EDR daily. So we are in an urgent situation to get our operators in the plant up to grade 4, so we're covered. So we've
When do we
made-
have to have it done by?
We don't have, since we have Rob, there's some leeway,
What's the
but
time frame?
there's no, we've listed Rob for the time being.
I mean, you have to have somebody right now in
Yeah.
grade 4?
Yeah,
before an audit happens, correct?
right. I mean, a sanitary survey is when they would catch that.
Yes.
But we do have one. He's just not working in there every day.
Was Steve a grade 4?
No. So, we wanted to make.
Excuse me, Dilly?
Yes.
He's talking about the EDR water.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, our wastewater is a different story, and maybe Dallas can let you know where we're at there. We are at level 2 requirement, right? To operate our wastewater treatment facility, our operators have to have a level 2. And all of them have that. except for the new guys.
Right.
So we're in good shape
Good.
at the wastewater plant.
What kind of time frame does it take to get to a grade 4?
Well, that's where we have made some exceptions to make sure that we can get that as soon as possible. We feel like the
Do the
risk.
guys need help? Do we need to get some?
Yeah, we're making some, one of the things that we're doing is we usually have the test, paid for in, after the fact, reimbursement.
Reimburse the operator.
But this is such an urgent need to the district, we've made an exception for these to get, we'll pay for the test to get them certified as soon as possible. So I wanted to make the board aware of that
How many
change.
chances do they get to pass?
It's unlimited.
It's unlimited. They have a
technically.
30-day waiting period.
But obviously, we would not spend unlimited
Yeah.
amounts if,
How often is a test given?
You can take it.
Every 30 days.
Oh, okay.
Every what?
But I mean, that,
If
so
we-
it isn't twice a year type?
They give it twice a year.
No, it's every
I
30
mean,
days.
we're not gonna
30
pay
days.
more for
30
the.
days.
I mean, if a guy takes it a couple times and is not making any progress, we're not gonna continue.
Currently, we're sending Matt Skogerbo down to the rural water specifically for this test.
Yeah.
To study for a week and test.
Test, yeah, they study
To
Monday.
ensure that,
Study
we're-
here?
what's that?
Don't we have the data to study here?
Yeah, they have the data, yeah, they have what it is gonna
No,
send.
do we have in-house a library of stuff that these guys can?
We're gathering that, yes.
Okay, we need to have that in-house.
We've given that to the other employees that are gonna get that,
Okay,
but part of going to the rural water conference, they're gonna offer the class to help make sure that Matt passes first try.
Plus they test there too,
They
right?
study Monday through Thursday, and then
Yes.
Friday they test. So they pre-test, get them set up to take the test, so.
that's a lot more pressure than if you're studying here and take the
I
test.
think it's a little both, so I think that's what Matt's plan is, he's gonna study until March and then, or February, so.
End of February,
March 3rd.
We're only a couple weeks away.
So,
2 weeks.
Time flies.
Yeah,
But we wanted to make the board aware of that. And if you had any comments or concerns, we'll address those. Obviously, you know, I think the biggest.
Is that the only one we have? That's the only person we have here who has a level 4?
Well, in that,
In that category, except for Dallas.
Okay.
And, but I'm only at 3, so.
Yeah, he's at 3, that's right. You were 3.
So-
Dallas is almost, he's got everything almost to the top, so
Good.
I
So-
forget which ones where.
So where are we at with everybody on where they're at level wise? You know, you might want to let the
We can
board
get, we'll come back and let
get
you
us a
know.
list and let us know because
have that tracked.
it'd probably be smart that we can get everybody up to where we need to the 4.
That's the goal. I think maybe to your point, Nick, and Danny didn't know this, but now these water tests, you've got the option to take it every 30 days. So that's new, so that's gonna help these guys go a lot quicker. And we've done our best to get the material, a lot of books, a lot of software, a lot of online material, and these guys have been working real hard at it. Raymond's guys have been doing it, and they've all been kind of working together on it, so.
and wastewater's still only twice a year. Right.
And it's like Jeff said, you know, having a library of stuff, you know, and of course that stuff changes, you know, like computers do, but at least if we can have the basic stuff on hand.
Yeah.
And those tests are tough. Yeah.
All right, that's all my report unless the board has any other
So
questions.
where did you want to address this engineer stuff at?
We'll do that on item, under the HR manager report.
Oh, okay. Trevor, it's your turn.
Thank you, Board. So the engineering report, we'll go over a couple projects. Zone 3 drinking water pump station, we did that upgrade all last week. That was pretty nerve-wracking, took a lot of coordination through, you know, in here, contractor, subcontractors. We were running off of just tank water in Zone 3 for roughly 5 days. Everything went well. we got back up and running on Friday afternoon. Water tested clean, and we put it in the system, and everything's up and operational there.
Good.
Got a few little things to finish internally there, but operation-wise, it's going well. Similar with the Zone 3 secondary pump station, just wrapping up a few of the internal things. We'll have to test that next year in the spring, before we start do an official startup and send the water into the system. For the water line project, Florence, Edith, they've got all that in, all the services are tied over. They are pushing very hard to get pavement as they can. You know, the county has told them 40 and above, if you're passing your compaction on the pavement, then you're good. So we look to, you know, have some of those a few days in the next couple weeks that Newman's getting set up to pave. So that's kind of the schedule there. And then a reuse update, the project, you know, with that's out to bid. It closes on February 23rd, and then we'll be coming next month with a recommendation on a contractor based on their bids.
So going back to reuse for a minute, you know, sitting on Jordan Valley Water's board and everything, you know, their previous manager, what about how he felt about reuse. So is the state going to allow us with the reuse? Because since the Great Salt Lake is so, because they're trying hard to save that, you know, and
I'm texting the legislator about that right now.
Okay.
Clint's gonna have to step out to meet with the bill sponsor on some bills that I need to talk to you about at noon, to talk to him about this. If you can let me finish this text, I will give you an update on where that is.
I can tell you where I stand. I read the bill. It seems concerning, the language in it. And some people feel like we're protected, and some feel like it's concerning.
Didn't we, I thought Dick told me that they had to apply for our wastewater that comes out of the wastewater treatment plant. He had to apply, he had to apply for those shares or whatever it is, that water that comes out of there to protect us.
Yes, that was done. Right. All the water rights are in a secure position.
Okay.
I think the concern we have is the language as it's written talks about any water that's in a tributary to the Great Salt Lake.
Oh.
On one hand, you know, you could read that the source of our water is underground water.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. It's not coming from something that's already a tributary.
Like a natural.
But we discharge that water after it's treated into C7.
Right.
And that, you know, so there's a little bit of a concern there. The other concern that's come up is, you know, we asked Trevor to get with the regulators and find out, you know, what's their take on it. And they're confused. You know, they're a little confused on how this affects them.
Yeah.
So there is a committee hearing tomorrow. I was planning on going to. Nathan said he was able to set up a call. And he might be able to provide some additional insight. But I think we should be concerned, not overly concerned at this point.
Right.
I think there's obviously our project specifically will benefit the Great Salt Lake in that any water we take in reuse, we're going to leave running in this canal that runs right by us, and it reaches the Great Salt Lake.
Absolutely.
And that's guaranteed surface flow.
Yep.
You know, so
Comes from the surface and stays in the surface.
yeah, so to tell a community that spent 30 plus years of planning, securing water rights, building a secondary system, treating the groundwater, the perchlorate, we've had federal money, this issue's been so big, we built a brine pump station to get it out of the wastewater, to improve the water quality. We have invested so much of our time and effort around reuse to pull the plug at the last minute when there is no negative impact to the Great Salt Lake. I think it shows you, it highlights the concern about these policies, unintended consequences
Right.
Right.
of a broad policy.
Now, what about if they move the dike, if they
Yeah.
move to 8,000, that's gonna change, that's only gonna shorten our discharge point, I think. Is the C7 ditch still gonna be along 8,000?
I don't know how.
So let me tell you something, it's very critical you attend this meeting. It's, I forgot what day it is, it's this month, I'll find out the date. But Kennecott's having a meeting here about expanding, because they're going underground mining now, and they're expanding. They want to expand the dike to the east, and it'll go to 8,000. So,
So whether they'll move the C7, they gotta do something with it, so.
Okay.
So here's, sorry, this is all happening this morning, so that's what I've been texting about. So the bill, the bill is coming from Representative Casey Snyder. Casey Snyder is the Rules Chair, so he's a very powerful member of the House. He is a farmer and he's a big advocate for the Great Salt Lake. I do a lot of work on the Great Salt Lake. I work a lot with him. I've had a lot of discussions with him over the last year. I was not involved with this bill, but I have mentioned your project specifically as the type of good project that should be allowed, because when you're reusing groundwater, and when you reuse that groundwater, you will free up thousands of acre feet in the Jordan River that can be leased. When I've had those discussions with Casey and others, they have all recognized that, yes, that's the type of project that we don't want to stop. What they're concerned about are reuse projects that will divert water from the Jordan River, or the Bear River, or wherever, and then reuse that water to extinction, and therefore deprive the Great Salt Lake of those flows. I don't think your project fits in that. There is a category in the bill that would qualify as a project that would reuse water to benefit the lake, and I would argue your project would if you lease your shares to the lake, either to the state or to the Great Salt Lake Trust, which I also represent. So the state of play with this bill as of 10:48 right now, it's up for hearing tomorrow. A lot of public water suppliers at the municipal level and at the UASD have reached out to Snyder to express concern about how broad the language is, because there is some concern that as it's written now, it would prevent good projects. I would argue it doesn't impact your project. I know there's some concern about whether it hits those canals. That's ultimately an agency call, so I think it would be good to get an exception. I have not been involved in whatever discussion this was, but on the UASD meeting on Tuesday, Heather Anderson, their lobbyist, reported that there is a recognition that they need to exempt projects that are either and/or far enough along and won't impact the lake. And your project was mentioned as the specific example of what should be done. But that said, we need to push that across the line.
Yeah.
Heather has been texting me. She is working on setting up a meeting with Representative Snyder at noon today when he gets off the floor. She's going to call Clint. Trevor, I think you should be involved as well in that call. So my suggestion is we let them step out, take that call with Heather, and I have a draft letter that I've been working on to get to you that isn't quite done, but I can send what we've got, that kind of bullet point this. But I think we're in some good shape for this, because one, your project really is already, I would also argue your project's already approved. It was approved by Water Rights, it was approved by the Division of Water Quality. We are waiting for a final construction permit approval, but to me that is more of a formality at this point. They've already gone through the impacts analysis. So I think the bill, if it passes as is, I think we still have a good argument that it still allows your project to go forward. But nevertheless, let's work to see if we can get an exemption. The other argument that I would make, and I like Casey, I think there is a lot of concern in House leadership in particular about the impacts of reuse on the lake. But I think you can distinguish this because if you're using groundwater, it's going to free up. Right now, you're using Jordan River water, which otherwise would go to the lake. When you do the reuse, you won't need that water. You can lease it to the lake.
Just to be clear, for the time being, in the foreseeable future, but we want to preserve our right to use that in the future.
Well,
And we won't,
that's going to be the tricky part. I'm going to be honest with you. The way that most of these projects are going is I am very pessimistic about any project that is going to reuse water to extinction. I think those projects are going to die. It's going to be replacing dirty river water with cleaner effluent. But for the time being, that's where things are with that particular bill.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope. Nope.
Okay, Raymond, we're gonna turn it over to you.
Water production summary. Conley water production of January was 86.45 million gallons, or 265.34 acre feet. A 7.75 decrease from January 2022. We have purchased 70.76 acre feet of water from Jordan Valley as of January 2023. Call-out report. Total number of call-outs, 23. Total number of hours paid, 78. 60 of these were on water call-outs, and 60 hours paid, excuse me, and 20 call-outs for water. And then I need to bring to your attention, we have Marie here, and talk about the lead and copper. 'Cause this is kind of, if you look at this, this is what we'll be sending out.
So just, I want to stop you for a minute. Going back to the call out of 78 hours, can you give the board each month what the cost is of what we paid out for overtime?
Yeah.
Okay, if you will. Okay,
Yeah, this is what, we'll go off the addresses on these houses, anything from 1990 down. We'll go off your address and your account numbers. If you look through this, you'll see it's kind of like self-explanatory. I can
Yeah.
go through it. So this is what the homeowner will see. And we have anything to put on?
And this won't be sent out to every homeowner.
No,
Just the homes that are older than
1990.
1990.
Oh,
I mean, not
Yeah.
here, but I can get it.
Oh, that'll go to my house.
You bet.
Yeah, with me. Ray, do you wanna say anything on this?
Just one.
With part of this letter, they're just getting a QR code that's specific to them. So they'll be able to either go directly to that QR code or the lead. And it will pre-populate with their account information, just to make it easier, so it's not a bunch of data entry for them, to do that. So they can jump straight into, go find your shut-off valve and start answering your questions. And then that will also, as they go through and do that, it will upload it directly into the software for Magna, so that Magna employees don't have to then turn around and do a data entry.
We're excited about it.
so Marie, is there any, on this kind of stuff, if, we, obviously we're gonna run into some problems with some lines, is there any kind of funding out there where, or grant money that, people, cause, if you run into this and people have all this stuff that,
That's about $5,000 to change a service line.
so, I mean, I didn't know if there's any kind of funding out.
There's funding for Magna Water. There's a deadline of February 20th to get upwards of $100,000 in grant based on your disadvantaged status. And so that application needs to go in by February 20th. That's going to be for reimbursement money.
Okay.
So we've talked with the project team about tracking the hours, tracking the equipment, and using that to get reimbursed. If Magna needs more money than that 100,000, there is more money available. That's just what you can get with this short application.
Okay,
You could go before the board and get more money for that. And the money that is available can be used for the replacement on both the public and the private side. So if we find lead service lines, those will need to be replaced, and yes, there will be money available. Typically, that's in the form of reimbursement, so it might be the sort of thing where
okay.
Magna, if you want to facilitate that to the residents, Magna may need to pay the cost for that total replacement and then get reimbursed from the state for that.
Okay. How many lines do you think we had? You think we have quite a bit?
Yeah, imagine, once we go through and we've found maybe a dozen so far.
So is anybody putting in for the grant money? I mean, have we done anything on that yet?
Yeah, we're working with them to.
Okay, awesome, good.
We're tracking all our
Thank
hours.
you.
We'll get you as much time as possible.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's from what it sounds like, it's a stepped process, so we can get this, a little bit amount of money to help with the investigation. Once we know exactly how many we have and the estimated cost, we could put in for some more.
Yeah.
Is that the
They can't even
idea?
afford $500 for secondary water. Son of a gun.
It will
Like that,
be easier
gee.
to secure money
Push
for
on.
the replacements. This is just a quick
Stewart
step to
here.
help communities, which you've made huge
I'll
progress.
tell you what.
Yeah, we're excited about where we're at. We feel like we're
Did they talk
in a
about
good
Big
spot.
Daddy today?
Now, my house was built in 70, and I ran a plastic water line, you know, so I don't know what kind of lines would people have, or how can they tell? If they bought the house, they don't know if it
I know
has.
he passed away
That's
this
where they'll
morning.
step be
Yes,
step
that's
through.
what this letter is about, is to go try to determine what that visible piece of pipe at your shut-off valve is. And step you through, it's called the scratch magnetic test. So basically, it's, you go and find it, determine which one is coming from the water system versus going out to your house. And then look at the color, look at what the pipe looks like, then scratch it and answer those questions, and put a magnet on it, answer those questions. And the sum of all of that information gives a most probable, material.
Because back in that day, the electrician used to make you run 5 feet of copper out of the house before you connected to plastic to make sure you had grounded water pipes, but they run a separate ground now, a separate ground rod, but back in the day, they wanted, so if you go up and look at your valve coming into the house, the service, it's gonna be copper, so you don't have any way of knowing.
And that's part of what Raymond's crew is doing as well, is evaluating what that service line looks like from the meter vault. And so if the meter vault matches what the resident has found, we're confident that the entire line is that. If they're separate, and either one of those, there's a concern with, then we keep going forward from that.
Yeah, we're potholing inside the meter boxes, identifying what is on the, going towards the homeowner side, so we're giving the city side and homeowner side.
I'd like to get mine potholed just because it's full of crap.
And that's all I have for water.
Hey, Dallas.
Wastewater manager's report. The first thing I'd like to bring up is the screw press study. It's the purple tab in your book. I wanted to spend just 1 minute talking about the equipment. If you'll go to page 7, there's a picture of the screw presses. This study comes from the need of additional equipment. Right now, we've got 2 of those units. On a slow day, they run for 18 hours at a time. On a busy day, both units will run for 24 hours of the day. During the initial design of the building, they made it so we could add additional screw presses. There's a pedestal for a 3rd and future 4th screw press. There's some building modifications that need to be done to accommodate those additional screw presses. If you were to back the truck, the haul truck up under those additional screw presses, it'd be hanging outside of the building. The building would be open, unsecured. Then if you'll go to page 8, the electrical components, all the SCADA equipment and the stuff that runs that equipment, those cabinets are all full. So we'll have to add on to those cabinets to get power, to run the additional equipment. In addition to that, there'll be some plumbing modifications that we'll have to do for the building. Trevor's got some slides, if he wants to pull those up.
What's the highest horsepower we have to add? Is the screw the most horsepower?
Yeah, they're
The
not.
rest are just transfer conveyors, right?
Right. It's more for the SCADA control, so we can, they operate them remotely so they can send signals to us if there's a problem. So we've been looking at this for a long time. We've asked Don and his team to look at it. and they've put together a study of what it looks like in multiple phases and multiple different options of how we add this additional press and a future fourth press. So I just wanted you guys to have an idea of the equipment, and then maybe I can turn it over to Trevor and he can talk a little bit about the study and some of the other modifications and options that we found.
So would the modification have, so you could drive in with the truck?
No, they were
Or
just,
be able to back it in and be able to close the door with the truck inside?
they were gonna add on to the building,
Have
right?
that on the
Yep,
building.
there's a few different options. Ultimately, we want to be able to back the truck in and close the door so that the facility's secure. If you'll look to the screen, that green rectangle represents the truck.
Right.
So a few different modifications that we can look at. You'll see in the packet that there's
Can you just drive through?
different cost breakdowns for the different alternatives. So alternative one would just be that first representation that's on the screen now. And then there's a couple different alternatives that show different modifications to the building. You wanna,
Yeah, so this is all, so, big part of this study was to figure out how we accommodate that haul truck. Make sure it's secure, have enough space, be able to back in under those screw presses safely. So option or alternative one is kind of the minimalistic approach to that, in that we take basically where the truck goes in and we extend that to the north so that it has enough space to back in, shut the garage, be fully enclosed. Part of that is right now, this passenger side of the truck, there in the existing garage door, there's a big concrete post, and the garage door sticks out from that. So they're not able to maneuver very close to the wall, which can create spillage and issues there, safety concerns, potentially hitting the side of that and those things. So this would take care of that. It would widen that overall entrance. It would move the garage door up here, kind of reposition it so that they can back in a lot straighter, don't have to angle, get under any of the 4 press
Now,
locations.
just a dumb question. Does the truck have to be enclosed when it's being loaded?
Not necessarily, but like he said, sometimes it's going 24 hours.
Right.
So we want the truck to be able to be in there and the door closed and the site secure.
I just wondered if you could put all 4 presses on a conveyor and just put it outside and drive alongside the building,
Completely
90 degrees.
push it to the west outside the building.
No, go same length as a truck, but then drive alongside the building on that north side.
part of that is the launch angle of that equipment. When you start to modify that launch angle, because the solids percentage of that cake that comes off there, you can't manipulate that angle, because then it starts to run back down into the equipment.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, if that truck's outside, then the truck starts to freeze.
Yeah.
Then you get all kinds of those problems. And there's not a clear separation within the building. So anytime that exterior overhead door is open, then it exposes all that SCADA and electrical components to the elements. So we've had failures in there with corrosion from the moisture and additional dust that shouldn't be there. And those electrical components should be secured in their own area with some ventilation and some temperature control, so they're not overheating.
Yeah.
And that just wasn't part of the initial design.
So why don't you get rid of the safety hazard and let's drive through it? Let's take out them bathrooms and that gourmet kitchen and all that and make it down at that end where they can just drive through, so we don't have to sit there and back in and hit into stuff. It'd be a lot, let's figure out the cost to do
We
it.
almost need both then, right?
Yeah, so
Drive through
what you do
and-
is you'd go from
Yeah.
the south and drive straight through.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just speak on that a little bit, because of the orientation of that building and the placement of the adjacent chlorine building, there's not enough wiggle room to get that truck in a
Yeah,
pull through.
pretty tight on the south side.
And where they've mounted, where the new presses go, truck has to be right there.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
So
So you'll have to add
a
on to it.
pull-through is more so limited by the existing chlorine and where this building is.
Yeah, cause see, the previous manager took me down there and he showed me that where you could work, where you could drive through.
yeah,
See, and there's an elevation change that I don't think he took into account, because at grade level on the south side of the building, you're about 40 inches higher. than
Right,
everyone
right,
else.
right, yeah, I know
It's a
that.
lot
you have to
higher.
drive down in.
So that's one option. We have explored that to
'Cause
length.
that's a, to me, backing in every time is a safety.
I agree. There's always a safety risk when you're backing, but there are times when you can't avoid it. So I think we should walk through the other alternates. Part of this would be, accommodating future storage. So alternate one just shows how we would modify the existing bay. And then if you move into alternate two, it talks about, how we increase the addition of the building, and we go the full width of the building, and then we can, park our additional equipment. So right now, one of the dump trucks stays outside. So if you see here with this alternate, we could get all of our equipment, have room for an additional equipment, and then it's got enough linear footage that you could park the two loaders back to back, and it would also free up a spot for our Vector truck.
Oh, yeah.
So we've had to move all of our collections crew equipment and all of our inventory and everything, and that's inside this same building with the treatment stuff. So we're just out of room, so we wanted to see, if we're modifying this building, what kind of modifications make sense to accommodate the collections crew that's been moved down there. Ultimately, we're out of space, and if we're knocking out that wall and putting on an addition, we wanted to give the board an idea of what a couple different alternates would look like, so we could get some feedback. And we've got the ideas of how we would use this space, so you wanna,
Yeah, so this one is not full height, and it would just be, like you said, mostly parking of equipment, trucks. Then the last alternative, it has kind of an alternate one and alternate two to it. So it's the full width as well. But what I'll point out is,
So would it park all our vehicles, all our stuff that we need, that needs to be parked inside? Would that do that? I mean,
it would park everything inside and, free up 2 extra bays on the other side for growth.
Where we're in here. Okay,
So right now, inside there, we've got 1 dump truck and 2 loaders, and then all of our chemicals, our polymer, all of our spare parts and motors, the blower that we've ordered, all that stuff is in there, along with all the materials for the collections crew. They've got piping in there and fittings and all that stuff, so.
so this would move the trucks and the loader out into its own area.
Correct.
And this would be heated separately with its own,
Yeah, it'd essentially be, correct me if I'm wrong, Don, but there would be ventilation for 3 separate areas. So we'd have ventilation to control the
leave out
SCADA
at
components, and then we'd have exhaust fans for the front and the back sides of the building to kind of create that separation.
okay. If I remember right, this is pretty stinky area.
Yeah, it's all bad.
So this would be a little better option.
Right.
Of course,
Well,
this-
it give you the flexibility where some of the materials, you want to protect it, and some of it, it's not as high risk. But if you're not loading the sludge and driving the dump truck in the sludge and then bringing it back into that part of the building,
Right.
the operation stays a lot more sanitary.
Okay. So what would be your first choice?
Well, maybe Don can talk a little bit about the recommendation.
so the third alternative is to go the full width of the building, but also go the full height
Right.
of the building.
Okay,
And that has kind of 2 parts. The first one is just, do the additional height. And where that starts to make more sense is that we would have the ability to build an upper deck,
a mezzanine,
for storage.
okay.
so let me ask you a question. Have you guys taken all considerations? Is there anything else that needs to be done to this building? I mean, like I said, for a future thing, because if there is, we should put it all together and bundle it all up and do it all at once and not just do this and then say, oh, by the way, we need to add this to this, I mean.
That's kind of one of the things that we talked about with Don. And when you look at the alternates, if you go to the last alternate, which Trevor's
Right.
showing now, If we did this, this accommodates future growth for any type of equipment for reuse, future growth for additional haul trucks. But then, you know, this building's done. This building's not, there's nothing else to do to it. So it wouldn't be in 5 years, we come back and say, hey, we need that mezzanine for storage. It's already done.
So 2 more presses, we don't need to put 2 more presses in right now, we put 1 more press in.
Correct. We've budgeted for a purchase of a screw press at the end of this year, in the hopes that we can accommodate it.
I remember going down, look, it is
But
pretty tight.
We have budgeted for the press in future year, or in previous years, we just have never been able to accommodate it, so.
The only thing I hate about that whole building is that backing up, that truck. That's the only thing I hate about down there when I was down there. In fact, I'm gonna go down, trust me, next week, I promise you.
Okay, but I guarantee you one
I
thing.
keep saying
we
that
could
every
do,
week, yes.
We could add a camera to the truck, it really would be good anyway. It's a good safety thing, because when you back a semi, you can't always look through the rearview mirrors, but
Okay.
having a camera on that, if that's possible.
If this is everything that we need and we don't need to do no more, I'm in favor of doing it.
What would that be? Which one? Which option?
You would be
If
right.
we were gonna do the whole thing?
Is it alternate 3 alpha?
Yes.
Is that what it is, 3A? The
See, Clint?
789? Okay.
And what we're looking for mostly today is direction so that we can start a final design of what that building will be.
What's our longest lead item here in our, in 3A?
As of right now, it would be that screw press, and those are manufactured in Germany, and those are about 10 months.
So that's why we know we're gonna do that press. We budgeted for it this year. We'll get it ordered towards the end of the year, knowing that, if we have a direction on design, then we'll start the building and it'll all kind of.
So we don't have enough power to run the press right now, or do we?
We've got the power, as far as the demand.
We just
what
don't have the room to load the truck.
Correct. Well, we don't have the equipment that we would tie the power to.
To get it to it.
So why don't you do this? Why don't you guys, I know you've thought about it and all this, why don't you go through one more time thinking really hard, if there's anything else that we need to tweak or do?
Yeah.
And then bring it back to us and say, no, there's nothing. And then I'm in total of supporting this decision, except for the drive-through.
Right?
It'd be hard to make the drive-through.
If I can speak, I know that we've had a lot of those discussions as we went through.
Okay.
And so out of the discussions, we realized that we had overheating problems with the instrumentation around that MCC. And so as part of this project, then we have proposed enclosing that MCC with its own little insulated walls with a separate air conditioning unit to keep it cool. We also know that with the expansion of, electronics, the PLC that we have in there now is too small. And so when we add the presses and do what we want, it's not big enough to do what we need to do with it now to communicate. So as part of that, we're gonna widen that instrumentation cabinet and then enclose that area in there.
Okay.
We also know that the smell from the trucks and everything in there makes it stink in the whole room in there.
Yeah.
So as part of this in here, we proposed to isolate and put a door at the bottom and a door at the top of the stairs and drill the wall to the ceiling so that the smell is isolated between them. We've also analyzed and know that they use a diesel pressure washer to clean around the screw presses and such that the smoke in there when they run the diesel is staining the walls and ceiling. So we're proposing a fan to come in there and put a hood so that we can collect that when they're running that and run it through a fan. So I think the staff has done a real good job already of doing what you just asked. So when you read through the details, we've got a bunch of other little things in there that are included in those alternatives.
Did you put the extra fans in that gourmet kitchen and the bathrooms down there so we can start using that?
Part of that, Mr. Chairman, is that, clearly that's not used for a kitchen, but
I
there's
know,
a
I
lot
just-
of intricate parts and stuff that go in there, and we're able to use that facility and that sink and stuff to clean those parts and do
Okay,
maintenance
so
and
it is
stuff.
being used?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing,
Now, we believe that isolating the smell from the screw press area from the storage.
What she-
area will help make that better.
Right.
Because
Well-
right now, it's, you know, at times it really smells in there. And so that's why part of this in here will do that.
Okay.
Wanted to indicate that maybe it's a little bit more detail, that's the engineer coming out of it, but it was kind of a process. We have a project with building another metal building for another client. And we talked that contractor to come out here and look at this to help give us cost estimates. And he came in and he says, I built this building 20 years ago. And so it was interesting that he was the contractor that built it. But we actually thought it would be cheaper to have a lower building and extend it. And what we found is that by because we've got one of the big steel beams that go over is right on the end of the building.
Right.
By raising it all the way up, then we can use that beam to rest as we go out, so we don't have to build another one of those big beams. So therefore, the cost of down low, which the alternative 2 is, going to the alternative 3 was very little money. In fact, to start with, the contractor thought it would be cheaper to go up higher because we can use that big beam, we don't have to have footings. And so once we went down that line and said, well, it's clearly better off to build it all the way up, that's when we realized, hey, you know, for just a little bit of money, we can put a mezzanine in.
Yeah.
And so it kind of down that process of how we got there.
Okay.
Of recommending that mezzanine. And so now that isolates it so that the fans and everything are cooling and separating that, the stinks now down there and then, you know, and so I gotta compliment the guys. They have thought through a lot of those, exactly what you were asking for.
Okay.
What can we do? What else can we do? They've done that.
Okay, good deal. I'm in favor of it.
Mr. Chairman, I would just, going back to to address the pull-through, I wanted to point out the last thing would be some of the existing utilities that come in right there. Specifically, there's a 2-inch gas service line that would have to be relocated. There's a culinary water hydrant right there. And, you know, we're talking about a 4-foot elevation difference. And so then we're talking about moving a lot of the existing utilities. And that pull-through, it's ideal, it makes sense. It's potentially just not affordable or economical.
You can see how that kind of is the
Now, one thing I would push back on,
drop.
Don, I'll push back on air conditioning in that MCC room. I mean, I've got them all over the place, and as long as they're ventilated, and keep them away from the stinky stuff, but if you're pulling outside air and you've got enough airflow through that MCC, you shouldn't have to air condition that room.
What about in the summertime though?
Yeah,
with it
even
being-
then.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, they're good for, they'll take up to like 110 degrees or something, but, yeah, unless we have unusual.
Yeah, so I see how that slopes down.
But it's gonna take 6 months to get any MCC stuff.
Right.
Yeah, that's a pretty long lead time right now, it's so ridiculous, but I don't know what you do.
I know the recommendation came from your instrumentation people to do that. In other words, they felt that they had problems with the air.
Yeah, and I don't like to put instrumentation in with the MCC. If you can put it in its own, then yes, then I agree with that, putting, you know, your SCADA system stuff, if you can put the PLCs and stuff in a ventilated or air conditioned room, but not to do the whole MCC. MCCs are made to do just outside fresh air, if you've got enough
So we can
airflow through.
explore all of that in the final. Yeah,
Okay.
to best.
I still like that drive-through, but
That's good, let's
Okay,
get
so
this.
I think that gives us what we need direction-wise to move through this year, so we appreciate that. And thank you, Don and Epic, for putting this together.
thanks, Don.
So we're gonna push on 3A, you guys are gonna look at it really hard.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so Dallas, you still gotta come up with the rest of your report, right? Are you done?
No, he's got more.
Yeah, the rest of the report, everything's looking good as far as the collection system goes. They're just busy doing their routine maintenance and their annual inspections, and they're gearing up to do the acoustic inspections with SL Wrap. And then there's an aeration discussion that comes a little later in the packet. So as far as
Okay.
the department, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Miss Leal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Board. So our legal requirements and internal policy compliance checklist.
Yes.
The end of last month, we posted the wage data that's required by the transparency website.
Okay.
We also posted the whole year's revenues and expenses that's required, so that's done. We're presenting today the fourth quarter to the board financials. The next one, I already went through, it's the transparency website, we've reported on that.
Right.
After the audit's done, I repost because it'll have all the entries, journal entries that they suggested. And then the semi-annual report for our investments, the money management was due end of January, that is completed. I checked on the Division of Corporations to make sure that my name's still on there, and that's good. Next page is the water use report. We're in progress on that. It's not due till the end of March. That's coming up fast though. And then the annual employee training I've highlighted because we've secured dates to have Olympus, our insurance broker, come in and do some employee training on sexual harassment, discrimination, violence in the workplace, fraud awareness, ethical behavior. So that's scheduled for this year. And the conflict of interest annual certification, I'd like to incorporate that a little bit with those trainings too.
Okay.
So. And then, if you would like, I can proceed into the financials. Do you have any questions on the compliance report?
I'm okay with the financial report.
Great,
Okay.
I can leave it at that if you would like.
Okay, that's great. So let's go over to you, Andrew, for the HR report.
Okay, so the first thing that we have in the HR report is discussion about possible staff engineer. I know we've been talking about it for a while. Trevor's done a really good job at gathering the information that he'd need for a job description, which is there in your packet. As we did some planning and looked into it and looked at what was happening within the district, it became pretty clear that Trevor's kind of transformed what our district engineer is doing and what we're capable of doing with our district engineer. Since he's been working as district engineer, he's taken on a much larger role with operations, which I think you can see the benefit that it's had both with cost savings and efficiency with having him have such a role with our operations managers. He's taken on a lot of large development, commercial development, capital projects, and so it's become clear that there is a need there for the staff engineer. We feel like the timing's right. We've got the space in the basement now. The growth is here. We are looking at the possibility of, if we move forward, we can post the job with universities before the graduation dates so that we can have a larger pool of talent to pull from. What we have here for you to look at is our current organizational chart. Let's see. Out there. There it is. What just happened?
Only showing half the chart.
There we go. So this is our current org chart here. You can see the engineering department over on the far end in pink. Trevor has underneath him the district inspector, our consultants, and the flow of work there. Our proposed org chart would look like this. You can see adding in that staff engineer right here. There would be no direct supervision. It would be a union employee. It wouldn't be taking away from any work of the consultants or anything like that. It would just be adding to the efficiency of the district. And just as a side note, you can see what it would look like here with the movement of Mandy having direct supervision and also adding in an extra mechanic. But back to the staff engineer, you can see that it would not affect any of the workflow as far as supervision and things like that. Do you guys have any questions or comments on the staff engineer position that we can address?
What kind of workload do we have now? Because we're seeing a lot of people pulling out right now. The only thing really going is apartment complexes and stuff, so
Yeah, I
what
mean,
do we see?
specific development wise, Gateway, they are nearing their end. Then across the street, we have Mahogany Ridge that has 6 phases. They are just in their initial reviews of phase 1 with us. So that's 6 phases to go through there. We're seeing a pretty consistent pool of these flex buildings coming in, along the frontage roads, along Beagley, along 72, along 2100. All of those areas, we see them changing quite a bit with these flex buildings. So that's been pretty constant through the year, at least, the last 2 years.
Flex building meaning those big warehouses?
Yeah. So that development side, and then the development just continues throughout the year. So you're constantly interacting with the developer, the contractor, working through that. And then our capital facility plan projects, we have large projects for the next several years with the reuse, with the influent pump station. We've got our replacement program that has, $1 million projects, $1 million worth of projects in water, sewer projects, replacements as well. Our well fields, we've got years of projects there as well, as far as replacement, maintenance, things like that. And then, as they mentioned, so I guess what I'm getting at is I'm giving you a lot of areas where, where things are happening as far as like quantitative percentages of where time is spent. We don't have that, but we can gather that type of information if requested.
One thing I was thinking about, because I know it's always a challenge, right? It's like, why are you guys coming and asking for more staff? If I was in your position, what is that turning point? And I think that's where we sit and we talk about level of service. There's been times in the development reviews where Trevor's come through me and said, hey, it's taken 4 weeks to turn around a development review, and that gets to what we're dealing with at the county level and above, and I guess the question is do we want to accept that level of service, or do we want to shoot for something more like 1 to 2 weeks, which is what's been historic? The other question becomes, and I think it highlights what Andrew's talking about, this Zone 3 pump station conversion that we did up here. Trevor and myself and Raymond had probably 3 or 4 hour to 2 hour long discussions. That's just us 3. Trevor and Raymond and the team probably had double that amount and more hour-long, 2 hour, 3 hour discussions about how to integrate and coordinate. And that's really where we're seeing that position able to impact our operations by bringing in the engineering analysis and being able to spend the time to walk through the what-if scenarios and preventative scenarios. And that's what Trevor would have to say no to, you know, to Raymond at some point. Hey, I can't do that. I don't have time. I've got to get to this. So we're having a lot of those situations where his time is being able to be split so many and utilized. And it's the same conversations at the wastewater plant, right, Dallas? I mean, the more time that we work together as a team, the more we can prevent a disaster from happening. Like that Zone 3, there were several things that came up out of those discussions that were thought through ahead of time because of those meetings, like coatings. Coating, we have a time frame for the coating. Once they fabricated and fixed all the piping, there's a cure time, and that's gonna take a certain amount of time. So they came up with a different cure material that would cure faster, so we could then get our sample faster, so that we were able to meet the time frame. Trevor did a bunch of modeling to make sure we knew exactly how much tank storage we were gonna see, and he was right on with the estimate. So it's just those types of things that it's hard to quantify to a board, but it's a real benefit that we're seeing on operations.
Yes,
And that's
very.
that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, I think, that is tough to understand is the magnitude of the work. When you put all of the projects that are going on out here at Magna Water District, you're talking about, I think last time I looked at it, it was like 20,000 hours worth of work, engineering work every year.
What's our turnaround time right now for a project?
If a new development came in today, you know, I would probably have 2 to 3 weeks to review. That is within reason, and I think that's, you know, any developer is gonna be pretty used to that. They always want something else, and I try to accommodate when I can.
Yeah. What would your option be if you needed help?
So we do have and had in the past, you know, Epic Engineering has reviewed some of those subdivisions. We still, you know, maybe, I haven't utilized that yet. I didn't feel like we were at that point.
Okay.
You know, I've worked with developers, let them know what my timing is, and we haven't got to a point where I felt like I needed that. But then even at that
The
point,
challenge,
it's
I
got
can
to,
speak to that.
Would
I
a
can speak-
complaint from a contractor, a developer, cause you then to maybe look at that?
The problem is if it's just as challenging for an engineering firm to coordinate and schedule engineering reviews.
But if you had somebody, so let me just stop here. So if we contract out with Dawn on this person that you're looking for on an hourly basis, or however you guys want to set this contract out, then, because in the past, am I wrong or right, that you guys used to have someone that would work side by side, you know, with Magna Water? We could go that route, and then you'd have help. I just struggle, again, we hire somebody, and I met with my financial planner the other day, and we're heading into it, we're into a recession, and it's, towards the end of the year, it's gonna be somewhat bad. So this stuff's all gonna start dropping off up here, and everything's gonna start cutting back. So I think if we're gonna do something, then we should contract out with Dawn to see if he could help us out with these projects,
And-
to take the load off you.
Yeah,
So I can speak to that, because we did have that relationship, and the challenge comes in that you're asking a consultant who's busy working on many projects to come and now prioritize, you know, these projects that we have. And it's not that they won't accommodate that schedule sometimes when they can. But even in that scenario, when we were using Epic, I didn't feel like I could completely turn that over. I had to review, and Trevor made the comment to me, well, you were making tons of red lines on the red line, and it's no knock. It's just that they're not out here working on it every day. dealing with the challenges and looking for the things that we are.
But could they provide somebody every day?
That may be something that could be done. I think it's really about a magnitude of work. So, like I was getting at before, when you add up all of the number of hours of consultants and engineering work that's happening out here at the district, it's in the 20,000 hours, so that's 10 people.
Yeah.
You're not talking about, and that's not development, that's capital projects. And so where Trevor's most effective at this point in the game is that he's managing that workload, right? And he's making sure what's happening is he's getting answers, he's getting coordinating with the operations teams and financial group and myself, and he's the bridge that's making all of that, all those projects and all those consultants that we're hiring moving forward.
Yeah.
Another consultant in that link doesn't really help because they're not here working day to
Directly
day.
involved.
They're not directly involved. Go ahead, Dennis.
One more thing I'd like to point out is we've kind of discussed the development of this position, and, you know, from an operations standpoint, I look at it, all the things I agree 100% with what they said. But as an operations manager, I look at it like, what can this guy do day to day? What can he help out as far as an operations side goes? And, you know, we have a lot of great tools that are available for us to use if we just had a little more time. This guy, I think he can have boots on the ground out on some of these sites with data collection, you know, with some survey instruments that we've got. He can do some of the analysis inside the building and help us with our mapping. So, you know, there's just a lot of things that this guy could do for daily operations that these guys haven't touched on, and even more than that I can go into. But I think there's a difference between the things that this guy could do as a union member and then what a hired consultant could do because of the hands-on day-to-day.
I think that's a good point.
So I've
we
been
understand
pushing
those
for it for a long time. I think, I know we needed it. So the problem I see is I see a lot of skids getting put on a lot of projects.
Sure.
So maybe what we ought to do is we ought to look at this classification and maybe come back to the board with more of the areas specifically.
We certainly can do that.
Because I kind of call it like an apprentice, but Trevor, the one reason you were considered is because you already had some experience. It's pretty hard to find somebody nowadays that have the experience because they're pretty well all taken up. You bring a green guy in, see, you had an advantage, and Clint spoke pretty highly of you. If it wouldn't have been for that, we'd have been a lot farther behind getting somebody up to speed. I think that's what gives us the advantage.
Great point.
I'd like to
So
look at it.
I really like, sometimes we can make an offer to steal somebody too, that's what you have to do, but I think we need to be specific on these categories that you're talking about. You're kind of bunching them all together. I think we need to sit down and list all those different categories.
Yeah.
And let's
Bring
look,
that back.
yeah, let's make sure that these guys know what we're specifically talking about and what we can help in, because we've got projects that are probably gonna be put on hold with the interest rate being so high and stuff. So, I see apartment complexes still going,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, there's concern there on our part, and that's where I think if we show them the estimated where we think in any scenario, whether development continues or whether it doesn't, you know, just with our capital improvements alone, we think there's a need, but we'll put that together and give the board some more hard numbers.
well, I for sure, Trevor, want to give you some assistance and help you. It's always really good. I think the HR manager has been able to help in some of those regard with everybody. And same with the junior engineer would also help everybody. So let's be more specific. Let's kind of break the category down. Of course, we've got new construction, but if it fades off, what else do we have? Let's kind of break that down and look at what we've got in-house versus what's out there.
Sure.
Yeah. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, the question I have is, I would like to see what you've been doing and what you've got added to your plate. Because like I said, I don't know, I mean, is this person gonna be able to keep busy every day, 5 days a week? Or is he gonna have days where he's just riding around doing nothing? I mean, you know, I don't want that.
Well, he's gonna be an apprentice, that's the problem. He's gonna be an apprentice, so there's some of this footwork he can do that would take.
Yeah, but it still
some of
comes with a cost.
Sure.
Good points. We know that there's concerns there, so we'll continue to work to try to address those concerns.
I mean, if we
before any
tried to
decision.
consolidate to make it, I don't know, I mean,
Well, Epic's kind of unique because they know some of the stuff we're doing.
they
so-
know about this town.
Yeah, and I would never even consider someone else that they're probably the most knowledgeable that can help out, that could jump in. And I think we've utilized them quite a bit, so, but I don't know how much more.
And I wanna continue to do that if we can.
But I still think we need to get a junior engineer, apprentice, or somebody to come in, spring from school. It's gonna take a while.
Yeah, it'll take a while.
But then, like Mick says, we've gotta support that cost. Sure.
Well, and you know, you get a junior engineer in here, they're not gonna come here for $30 an hour.
We did some rate analysis through looking at what other companies are listing the postings at the Utah Transparency website to see what the staff engineers are making at every other government agency throughout the state. He spoke with several consultants to find out where different rates are at. So I think we're pretty spot on as far as where our starting rates should be
And that's in the.
to be competitive.
65 to 70?
Yeah, right around there.
But you,
65 to 70.
That's for a person with a year experience and a degree.
I don't know, I see an engineer coming, you might get a green one out of school for 33 an hour, but I don't know, that seems low to me. It really does, I mean, cause they're all got higher expectations.
Could be.
Yeah.
And that year experience is generally gonna be through an apprenticeship, their final year in college, correct?
so when you say 65 to 70 a year,
I just wanted to add, in anticipation of this position, we did put it in our wage budget. So just,
yeah, but what was our wage budget, what was the based on?
I'd have to look, but it was about 70 or so.
Something to think about. We don't need, obviously, we're not coming, if the board wants additional.
We can gather that extra
We'll
information.
gather more information and bring it back.
Yeah, we're talking just bottom end, 70,000 a year, so.
I was gonna say, it's pretty cheap.
I think we need to be able to justify the hours and what we're talking about, because we have to apply that entry level or even a second year to what can he do, what part of what you're doing can he do? Other than being a helper, I mean,
What about, do we have anybody that has got any schooling here that's still doing schooling that,
Well, we do. They're not quite, unfortunately, their personal circumstances have required
got in the
them
way?
to-
Yeah.
Well, it's just supporting another family member to
Yeah,
get them along.
It's hard to have time to finish school as quickly as this position is needed.
yeah, that's hard. Yeah, part-time would stretch it way out,
okay.
yeah. We just need some ammunition. Sure.
Let's move on to these projects and award and agreements.
Okay, so I will, no, I don't think so. I'll cover those, thank you. So the first one on there is Epic Engineering. This is an amendment, A, to a previous task order, 2021-6. So the name there is Truck Garage Sand Bins, but this is specific to the truck garage. Previously they had done a design. It included, the package for that design included the garage, parking lot modifications for this building, as well as the storage for material. We've since separated this material storage, that's moving forward, you know, we've got that all squared away. We're still waiting on a final approval, but that's separate from this, so. And then the parking lot we'll end up doing separate, so now we've focused in on just the truck garage. So last time we bid it out, no one bid. Like Don mentioned, they've got some better contacts with steel building builders, manufacturers, so a better idea of what we need to do as far as bidding to be successful. And then we had some discussions on the building itself, so there's some minor changes. We added heating to the building because of the new Vector being parked in there. We wanted to make sure that was not compromised. So we added heating, which brought electrical. So some minor things changed there, and that's what this task order is to cover, is to update those plans and rebid it.
Okay.
So, any questions on that one?
Nope.
Do you want me to go through all, or do you want to go one by one?
Well, how do you want to approve them?
I don't care, we can go through all of them, and then, can we do that, or do we have to approve each one? We have to approve each,
You can do all of them.
but
And,
then you have to go back and approve each one.
well, yeah, well, the issue is, you could go through all of them, and if you're fine with all of them, you could just vote to approve. The only issue is let's say you go through items 2 and 3, and you're good with those, and you get to 4, and you want to make a change. So I would suggest that you just, as you discuss them, you just approve them. That way, if there's concerns, you can address them then.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to approve the Epic Engineering Amendment A to Task Order 2021-6, Truck Garage and Sand Bins Design and bidding in the amount of $12,400.
I'll second that.
Been motion second?
Aye.
Okay. Next one is the Stantex General Task Order, for water wastewater service for $50,000. We've been doing this general task order with them, for several years. They've been great support with, utilizes this to complete the phosphorus report, have our, meetings at the treatment plant, discussions with the water treatment team, support in all of those. This year, or in 2022, 42,000 of that total 50 was utilized. So we'd recommend continuing that, and approving that task order
Okay.
for Stantec General.
You okay with that, Dan?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to approve Santex's general task order for wastewater services in the amount of $50,000.
Second that.
Motion second?
Aye.
Aye.
Third one, Bowen Collins and Associates Task Order 2301. This is specific to wastewater general engineering assistance. So with Bowen Collins, being more involved in our wastewater treatment plant through the reuse, through the influent pump station, we've had some basic discussions with them on our aeration needs, and thought that it would be advantageous to have them under a general task order to help with some of those calculations, planning, some small design, as well as anything else this year that may come up where we need additional support.
Oh, I was just reading the rates. Holy jeez. I need to be a clerk for Bowman Collins or something. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to approve Bowman Collins Associate Task Order 23.01, wastewater general engineering assistance in the amount of $25,000.
Second that.
Been motion second?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Fourth one is Epic Engineering, their general and development support task orders. So, if you look in there, like each year, we break down the last few years. For general engineering support, In 2022, we had 9,984. So I just want to point out in that one, in that table in the report or your packet, I've crossed out the easements. That was intentional because they don't have the survey department at this time to review those. We have other consultants that can help if we need easement reviews.
Are
So
they
I've-
approved, or is the other consultant approved? or-
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, within our pool, yep, absolutely, so, and then, so what I asked them to do was for this year, move that 5,000 that was typically under the easements, move it up into the engineering portion of the general engineering, so that we maintain that same amount, but kind of shifted where that was taken from. Then we got the development, we made some adjustments there. Talking with Leal and looking at the past few years, we've always done $100,000 as a budget for the inspection. We're seeing an average over the last 4 years of 153. So she's been able to, make the adjustments within the budget, but talking this year, we want to try to get closer and potentially over what we actually use.
Okay.
Is that accurate? So I had them adjust that one to 150,000, knowing that development's probably gonna slow down. Gateway doesn't have as much happening. Last year we did 177, but it was quite booming early on. So the 150, we feel like will cover
Okay.
2023. The rest of it has stayed the same as previous years. So, any questions on those four?
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make, I don't know what I want to make a motion to approve Epic Engineering General and Development Support Task Order 2023-1, 2023-2, and 2023-3, and 2023-4 for the total amount of $160,000.
Second ten.
Good motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
All right, the next one is aeration discussion. So this is for the purchase of the Triton 2.0 retrofit kits, which is to complete phase A of our kind of aeration improvements. So the Triton kits are basically, you take the existing aeration equipment and it's kind of some plug and play components that increases their efficiency and their output. We've got some slides there. Andrew, can I have pass this back and forth?
I need that blown up so I can freaking read it. No, I mean, a separate sheet would be easier to see.
Yeah, they're kind of small there, but.
I want to see how we compare to this guy.
So the first one is just kind of things that we've discussed, throughout last year. So we kind of talked about how our influence has changed, some of the reasons why. We showed you also where kind of our average BOD falls in with the rest of our surrounding providers.
Trevor, on that slide, would you please point out which color represents the district and kind of how we fall in that category?
Here,
Yeah, blow that son of a bee up.
well, yeah, sorry. Okay, I'll zoom in. We gave an average line. We didn't, in this create our kind of monthly trend line through the year. But our average puts us kind of right in the middle of the, kind of middle higher end of the varying, groups, which would be Cottonwood, Granger, Hunter, Kearns, Mount Olympus, Murray, Taylorsville, Benyon. So some similar groups to ours, similar communities at this point. So, that's something we covered prior. This is just a refresher there. And then the third kind of table, as a reminder, shows kind of what are, when the upgrades to the treatment plant, the clarifier, this aeration, the design data was this line, yellow, orange, whatever it's showing up as. And then what we're actually dealing with is the green as that aeration equipment.
Which the higher is the worse, right?
The more air we need, right? And then that showed you kind of where our equipment ability is. So if it had not gone up, the BOD, the strength, you know, the red line showed if we had 7 of 8, we had adequate air to cover all of those. With 8 of 8 pieces of equipment, we had even more air. But with our actual demand line, we're right in the middle of it or the low end of it when, you know, being able to provide enough oxygen. So we kind of covered all of this previously, just a refresher. So with that, you know, we had already kind of determined that our aeration equipment is undersized to treat our current loads and flows. And then we did, you know, phase 1 was kind of our shelf unit and maintenance parts where we got these on the shelf so that Dallas and his group could swap it in if there was issues. That's been proven to be beneficial. Phase 2 is kind of now looking at improvements to aeration, redundancy, and capacity. So that is kind of where we're at, and now in phase 2 is the first part of that would be our recommendation is these Triton units. Well, the retrofit kit. So what that does is it increases the efficiency by 20%. It lowers the power consumption. It gives you increased mixing capacity, you know, up to 54%. So the installation of those kits can be done in-house. You know, we don't have to fully drain. We don't have to drain the, you know, ditch. We don't have to fully remove the equipment.
So does this replace what we have now where we're just blowing air in?
No, what it does is kind of the impeller part, right? And Dallas could probably dive a little more into that.
Part of the upgrade is changing that impeller side, or impeller size, and that's how you get the additional oxygen increase. I think part of this conversation is communicating some of the hurdles that we're facing. So hurdle number 1, how do we best utilize the equipment that we have while we figure out what we need to do? Hurdle number 2 is if we are looking to do a future upgrade, you know, how do we run that? How do we run that new equipment? So this is the quickest thing that we can do to get an additional boost in aeration. This is a piece of equipment that, like Trevor said, we can install in-house. It can be here in 10 to 12 weeks, and we can get a minimal increase in aeration. It's certainly not the long-term fix. And that comes down into some of the future phases. So this is just one of the things that we are recommending that we need to do right now. So going back to those slides, you know, one of the other hurdles is up until recently with that blower failure, we haven't had problems with this equipment. So we've never had to remove this equipment. We haven't had to maintain it. So we don't really know it that well. So another hurdle is if we have to remove one of these, we don't have a crane that removes that from the basin. So this is a real complex problem that we're all working on as a team. I'd just like to kind of reassure the board in that, you know, you've got some of the brightest minds in the industry. We've got Don's team from Epic, we've got Bowen and Collins and Jason and some of his team, Clint Rogers from Stantec and his team. This is kind of a group effort to see, you know, how do we make the best educated decision to make up the deficiency where we are now, and then select the alternate equipment type that gets us further into the future to where we need to be. So
So on the upgrade, we're putting a bigger impeller. Is the compressor stay the same?
the compressor and the blower, everything stays the same minus the impeller. So
And the analyzer.
So right now, we're putting eight new blades on?
Yep, 8 new, it's just called.
Impellers.
Yep, Triton 2.0 retrofit kit.
Okay.
And there'd be 1 per, unit, so 8 total. And that total cost was that 82,938. And that's all work that we do in-house.
Yeah.
So-
So it's kind of 3 components. There's a different, the connection point of all this, the impeller and this atomizer.
Oh,
And that
so
increases.
the difference is the way that it injects in around the impeller or something?
It appears, yeah, and that increases the oxygen transfer, optimizes it. So that's where you're getting those increases.
So what does it do now? Does it just blow in?
Sorry to interrupt. Clint just took that call with Representative Schneider. Trevor, I think you should be on that too, if you can
Okay.
follow him back there.
Oh,
So
Okay, so are you okay with that?
sure.
Okay, let's motion it. And then whoever wants to take the lead while Clint's gone, so we can get finished.
Yeah.
So the last one is just the basement wall.
So did you guys approve it?
Yes.
Okay, Landmark Company's change order, additional.
Oh, hold on. We've got to purchase, we got to first.
Yeah, I gotta approve this.
yes.
So
We
let me
approve
make a
5.
motion to purchase the Triton 2 retrofit kits to complete phase 2A of the aeration improvements in the amount of $89,938.
Second that.
It's been motion second, all in favor.
How long will
Oh,
this
Dan.
give us? A year, 6 months?
Yeah, hopefully. So the next phase would be the organic capacity study, and then to look at the alternate equipment, so.
Okay, who wants to take the lead on, okay,
The next item is Landmark Company change order for additional wall in the basement in the amount of $19,882.60. And that was what we talked about in the
when
last
we went
one.
down on the tour?
Yeah. That was
Okay.
to add the wall in front of the
Yeah.
bathroom, okay.
Yeah.
And are we adding a door and then some electrical in there?
No electrical, just the door.
It said electrical on there, right?
I'm not sure, I haven't been.
Oh, I don't know, I'm just going off. of what
Like
it is.
wall outlets or something.
That was,
Probably wall out.
Yeah, they're
Yeah, and switch for the light in the hall.
I thought it said something like that.
Yeah, electrical.
okay, then we put the electrical,
Oh, 2 outlets and 1 on either side of the new wall.
yeah.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Landmark Company's change order for additional wall in the basement in the amount of $19,882.60.
Second that.
Been motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, administration, we've already did the deal of Berkeley, so we don't need to worry about that. An approval purchase price of the Magna Water District having West Valley City purchase the land from us for $105,500. Authorization staff finalize the purchase agreement, so that's what we talked about that day, remember?
Do we
Okay.
need to make a motion on that?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
you would. So
Okay.
just, this is West Valley City is doing this road project. I think we've already given them some land before. This is the additional part. We've looked at it before. It seems like a fair price. It's consistent with market value.
Right.
I've looked at the agreement. I've provided my edits. I believe that they are acceptable. Trevor can do it. But what I would recommend, since they aren't here right now, is that you recommend to approve it and that you authorize the general manager to work with legal counsel and the district's engineer to make any final changes needed to the conveyance documents for execution.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the West Valley City's purchase price for the Magna Water District property along Haynes Wellfield 2820 South property frontage in the amount of $105,500 and authorize the staff to finalize the purchase, working with legal counsel and engineering and the manager.
Second that.
Been motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, electronic packets, demonstration.
Okay, so we talked about the possibility of getting everybody a computer so that we could save some money on printing packets and save time, become more efficient. Leal went through a lot of painstaking, no, it went pretty
Both
quick. She
did.
was really good at it. So what we'll have here to show you is this is just the same packet you're looking at. She's created links here on the different pages that you'd want to go to. So if we just go down here to say the HR manager report, if you click on the red box, it takes you straight to that manager's report. You can scroll to where you want to go with it. When you're done looking at that report, if you click on the button that says agenda, it takes you back to the agenda so that you can go back to whichever other agenda item you want to go to. And so it will move pretty quick and free for you. One of the cool things that you'll be able to do when we do this is if you have a certain thing that you're looking for, there's a search function inside Adobe that you can just type in property taxes, and it comes up with the one time it says property taxes in the document. You click on it and it takes you straight to that portion of the document. I think what you'll find is it seems scarier than it's really gonna be, and that it'll make things easier for you rather than harder.
Sorry, and you can expand those pictures that Jeff was saying, blow that thing
Yeah,
up.
so right now,
You can blow that thing
you can
up
see up
right
here
in front of you.
at the top that we're at 200% zoom. If you want to see it bigger, you can go to 800% zoom. Back to 100%, you can have it any size you want. Any questions or comments on that?
I do. I have a question and comment because I sit on the Jordan Valley Water Board and they have that same thing, but people preferred a hard copy. If Jeff or one of these board members wants to try it out and try to convince me, maybe I will, but I'm okay with I'm okay with the hard packet.
And that's
And I
great.
think that's,
I prefer this myself, then that way I know I'm going through, well, where's that at? Time we get to the punchline, I've missed it, but I preferred the hard copy than a computer, but that's just me. But
Okay.
if you want to try it out,
Well, it requires a separate device, right?
Yeah.
A tablet.
it would be a Chromebook.
and what does that cost?
Yeah.
A Chromebook would cost about $500, but when you look at the cost of savings of printing, we broke it down a couple months ago. We spent somewhere in the realm of, I think, $16,000 is what we figured on time spent from Mandy and Leal making the packets, the copying paper, the ink, the tabs, the binding.
Every month?
For the
No,
year.
the
Oh,
But the $500 would be a one-time upfront cost, and then
Then if you have
So-
people like me that get it and can't figure out, then that comes the
And
cost to
that's-
get it all
that's
figured
okay,
out.
'cause you know what? One packet is a lot less than 11.
yeah, one packet's a lot less and cheaper than 11.
11. 2 packets are easier than 11.
maybe, I haven't heard a cost of the electronic changeover. You were gonna get us that.
As far as
What is it gonna cost us to change over to electronic?
um,
Because does Raymond have electronic?
it would just
It would be the.
we would need to
cost of
determine
the
who
Chromebook.
is gonna use it.
Let's say
And-
worst case, if everybody did, what would the cost be?
So Trevor, Leal, myself, and Dallas and Clint all already have
Electronic.
electronics. So it would be the board and Raymond at roughly $500 to $700 per person. So you're talking 2,000 to 3,000.
Okay.
I'd like to stay with these myself, right now.
Just looking
But-
at this seems pretty simple.
For once a month, it's.
What does that?
Is it,
Oh, yeah.
is it pretty simple, Raymond?
Just looking at what Andrew's doing, I think it'd be really simple.
Well, let's get one of them and just try it out.
Yeah.
Let's,
You know what?
I'll
We
be
could
your
get
guinea
one
pig.
and let you all
Get one for
retry
Raymond,
it.
get one for
Training
Raymond and
class.
let's try it.
Yeah, there you go.
We could try it.
We approved it previously as in the budget. And so I guess what we need to know is who is gonna make the changeover.
I think we should get one and let them,
Yeah,
all three.
I like these because then the guys come down, drop them off and tell me what's going on.
Well, we can still have them swing by. and-
home computer.
We can bring the thumb drive to
Yeah,
your house.
Yeah, there you go.
let's table it.
Table it.
Move
No.
on.
All we wanted to do was
we
demonstrate.
just want to
That is
demonstrate what
just-
it's gonna look like.
You wanna try one?
Let's get a couple and try 'em, yeah.
Get Raymond one and Jeff one and we'll go
We
from there.
gotta be able to show, Mick, that it's that easy, but
Okay,
I have a hard time with the, I like
would
a
like a
mouse.
mouse.
I like a mouse.
yes,
so
and
do
I agree.
That's me.
Oh,
I like.
okay.
I don't like the little
That's me.
No,
trackpad.
I don't like the pad.
I just
But
like
anyway,
the
let's,
So I got a laptop at home like that. Can I use that?
Yes, but then
That's safe.
maybe that's gonna subject you to grandma with your,
yeah,
yeah,
cause you're mixing personal.
I just
stuff
hate
with
I
the-
just hate spending money on something if we get it and I don't like it, then we've wasted money, where if I have that my own
I
deal.
bet you they would have a return
we could return it.
policy.
Well, I've got
Like,
a question then.
If we,
What about if you wanted to make a note? Like, I see all of our notebooks are jam-packed with notes and annotations, so
There's a,
how does it do it and how does it save it?
Yeah, how do you attach a note to it so you?
there's quite a few options.
Cause I'll tell you right now, it would save a lot of room for me because I don't throw these away, I hang on to them.
Yeah.
So if I could put notes in it and keep it electronically, I could save myself a lot of space. And I could refer back onto it and say, oh, what did we do last August or whatever? So there is some advantages, so you just need to teach us how to go through this.
We could teach you that. There's options to add comments, there's options for notes, there's options for a sticky note. It's like a little yellow piece of
Sticky
paper that looks just like a sticky
Okay.
note that sticks there and you.
Well, if we can do that, let's demonstrate that to Mick and show him that it's fairly easy.
So we'll look into getting one for Raymond and Jeff. And,
And we'll all work on it.
okay,
Yeah,
Cause I'm like him. I've saved every one of these and I got boxes
Yeah.
and down there. And I need to throw
and
it
it's
away.
impossible to go through and find it,
Hey,
but
you
if
know
we
what?
have it
when
electronically,
you do
that is a real
bring
plus.
it down to our shred bin.
But we can also make notes as we go through it, and if we have questions, they'll pop up as we come up to the meeting,
Yeah.
so.
That's fine.
I'm kinda like Mick, I write mine and I write notes and stuff, and then, but I also
But I
make
can
notes
bring 'em
during the
down.
meetings, so.
Like right
let's-
now, electronic pocket demonstration. No.
and it is one of those things, once we do that, we'll definitely do some training on it. Because me and Lee Isles are still learning how to build it. And so we've learned a lot in the last month and a half about it, that we can help make the transition less painful.
Well, it'll be a lot
Does the
easier.
council have one, Dan? Does the council have a Chromebook?
Electronic? It's all paper? Yeah, but they only print out a couple.
And I was trying to be funny about table.
So,
Eric does.
It didn't.
Yeah, Eric does. Eric, but that's his personal.
can I share one?
Yes.
You know how we're trying to not revert, but to go to electronic filing paperless? We got that Cassell document management program up and running and we're using it. And all of us are noticing a lot less paper across our desk.
Wow,
It's been awesome.
that's good.
The stack of checks that you signed that's it right now. That is it.
Going back to legal counsel, so one of the council member does have a computer, or maybe there's a couple of them that do. Is that subject to a grandma's request?
Yes, so any information that you have via an email,
On your personal?
on your personal computer, and so that's why most public entities will have a public email account. And so, and ideally, you should be keeping those separate. And I think, now, I know plenty of public entities where people, they check their emails on their computers, but it's the account that matters. But that's why I think it's a good idea that if you were to do a lot of work electronically, that you would have district-provided computers, so it's just easier to compartmentalize that stuff.
And just use it for that, not for personal use.
Yes, that way if we ever get sued or there's a grammar request, we can just hand over that computer and we don't have to worry about going in and figuring out what's personal and what's not.
Okay.
Each and every one of you do have a Magnum Water email account.
Yeah, I've never used it.
No, I haven't either.
So I gotta help you get into it with your passwords and stuff. but-
Yeah, and you really should be, you should not be doing the district's business on your personal account unless you want.
So let's just say I have my personal, I have a personal computer and I download our meeting on this. Is that a deal to grandma's request that's on my computer?
Well, I think in that context, we don't need to get it off your computer to provide them the packet. So you.
But I
can
mean, what
use
I'm
it.
saying is, once you guys do that, you send it to me and I download it on my personal computer and I bring my personal computer to the meeting and we're going through it. Now is that subject for grandma's request because I'm using my personal computer?
It doesn't make it cleaner, and that's why.
Just that portion of your computer
just that
would be
portion of your
subject.
computer.
So
So-
they could request your computer, they can't go look through all of your pictures and whatever else. They can go look through.
Anything that pertains
Yeah,
to
but,
the water.
but the practical reality is when you get into, litigation in particular and you're going through discovery, and if you've got if your work computer is your personal computer and it's all mixed together, the chances of something personal getting intermixed are a lot harder. And frankly, it's harder for Leisle when she gets a grandma request to say, hey, Mick, I need whatever is on your computer, and then you have to hand her your personal computer. It's just easier for you to say, sure, Leisle, here's my work tablet, and it's all work-related. It protects you, it protects the district, it's easier to administer, and that's
Here's
why.
my Magna Water tablet.
Yeah, here's your Magna Water tablet, this is what I use to
there's
check.
This
my
is
Magna
easier,
Water.
then I don't have to ask for nothing.
Yeah,
I think so too.
Okay, let's demonstrate to Mick that we can do it. Let's take a look at it.
We'll
I don't think it'd be a waste of time. I don't think it'd be a waste of money. Let's.
And
at
see, it'll
least
be
look
good
at
for
it.
you because you work with computers and
I just have to remember to grab onto it and bring it with me.
Bring
No,
your
it's
hot
okay.
one.
just remember, if you do, I'll have a backup right here for us.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, so next is our our next board meeting is gonna be March 6th, 2006. Oh, you didn't have, did you have anything? Cause I
yeah,
thought
we
you,
got a lot to go over.
oh, okay, cause I thought, yeah.
This has all been blowing up this morning, so.
Make it quick though, right?
The biggest
Yes.
bill is the reuse bill, and you just had the conversation with Representative Saunders, how'd that go?
Yeah, it went good. I think my grasp from the representative is that they're not looking to go backwards after projects that are already far along. So there's a substitute bill that we're gonna get sent to us that supposedly will protect our project.
Okay.
So I think that's good news. We'll review that and let you know if anything changes. I think he's trying to avoid us going to from what it sounded like, he wanted it to get through committee, and he knew there was quite a few groups that might show up at the committee, because I was planning on going tomorrow.
I think you
But I
still
think
should.
well, I might still go,
I-
but
I
I
think
might
you
not
still
need
should
to,
go.
I might not
You
need
might
to.
hear some other things.
Who knows, yeah. I think I'll plan on still going, but I think he's concerned about a lot of
If you ate it.
outcry against it, a lot of people speaking against it.
Sure.
So I think as long as we can look at it this afternoon and support it and it addresses our concern, we'll be in good shape on that.
Yeah. So the other bill that, and we met with
scared me.
Representative Tusher, the bill sponsor, Andrew and Clint and I earlier this week, is there's a union amendments bill that will prohibit public employers from deducting union dues from wages. The other concern we had is there was some pretty broad language that would prohibit us from having the union come to here to talk about benefits with employees. They would have to send them off-site.
Well, they've always done that I mean, we were good about it, but a lot of people don't let that, a lot of businesses, if you do union business, you go to their business. So the question I have, so if I'm a union member and I pay union dues, now the company won't take the dues out. It's up to me to write them a check and send it to the.
Yeah, so let's walk through each of those issues. That was the issue we discussed the most with the sponsor. I think that is really frankly the biggest thing he's trying to accomplish is to prohibit that. Clint and Andrew tried to explain, well, that this is something we like to do for our employees. It helps foster a good relationship. The argument I made is it's also a good bargaining chip for us to use in the union negotiations, because it's not something that costs us a lot of money, but it's important to them. But he seems pretty adamant to that, and we knew that going in, that was going to be the issue that he was least likely to change on. The other issue the concern, so to answer your question, Mick, is yeah, then the union would, I guess, have to send invoices to their members and the members would have to pay it.
See, to me,
offline.
by them doing that, it's like they're trying to break the union by doing that, because if they don't take it out of your paycheck every payday, and it's up to you to write them a check or have direct deposit, I
The
mean,
representative specifically said he wasn't trying to break up unions. He did, he said that. The intent was he didn't want any public money spent, helping the
Oh,
union,
I see.
essentially.
Okay.
And really, the problem is for us is it doesn't cost us, that's really not a argument that makes a lot of sense, because there's a lot of things that, like Aflac,
That we withhold and pay
you know,
anyway.
there's certainly things that not every employee take advantage of, but we still provide, and because it doesn't cost much for us to administer it, to add it to the check. So, I mean, who knows, but that's what he said to us.
so I think that's gonna pass.
I don't know. Representative Tusher is the vice rules chair, so that gives him a lot of influence to get it through committees. I think it's too soon to tell at this point, but I think it's got a decent chance of passing. The other concern that we discussed that I think is probably the more important concern was just that every time we want to meet with the union, we've got to read a statute to see if it checks a box. And if we have them come over to meet with employees, or we have a question about how to
Yeah.
do something, if we're going to be running afoul of the law. He was very sympathetic to that concern. Heather and Clint and Andrew and I had some language that basically said, let us determine when we need to meet with them. And it's kind of a catch-all provision that would say, or, whenever the public employer deems it necessary to meet with the union. So I don't know if that exact language will come in, but he said, that's fair, that makes sense, I'll work on something. So
I think
that will
his
be-
biggest intent was he didn't want people unionizing
Yeah,
on company time, which is understandable.
yeah. So we'll likely get the amendment that we most wanted. We'll need to see how that plays out.
I'll be over that.
So that's the other one. The third one that is worth noting is a water exaction bill that would redefine how water exactions have to be done and the process used to do it. Normally, the term water interest exaction in the municipal code refers to water rights. We do impact fees, we don't do water rights. However, the local district code where this language is located doesn't have a definition for water interest, and so there's a concern as to whether that could also be misinterpreted as applying to impact fees as well. I don't think that's the intent, but that's one of the gray areas with that bill. The other thing is, if you ever need to go back and do water dedications, this bill would require you to have a separate dedication amount for certain types of units. It would only allow you to go back 5 years to determine what your water use is, and it would tie your hands.
Increase our administrative costs.
Yeah. So this bill was up in hearing earlier this week. Senator McKell, who's sponsoring it, pulled it to work on some amendments. Both USD and the league are doing it, but something to watch. The last bill, and since Mayor Pay is here, I don't think this will have a direct impact on you, but it will impact the Kearns community, or the Magna community as a large. Representative Tusher is also running another bill that, as I understand it, the new amendment would invalidate the Unified Police Department and then give all of the communities that get their police service from UPD about a year, 18 months to figure out new law enforcement. That substitute bill is going to come out at some point today.
So they'll make Magna have their own part?
Well, Magna would have to either work through the MSD and the other metro townships to come up with their own police department, or they could contract with the Salt Lake County Sheriff,
Or can they go with anybody they want,
or they could contract with surrounding cities.
like West Valley City,
Yeah,
or?
that's I think the intent. Of course, whenever you do something like that, it's usually, the concern I'm hearing now is that a year, 18 months just isn't long enough.
To put it together.
Yeah, but that's not really a concern for you, but of course you're here, UPD is your police force, it's kind of, and I think you probably talked about it last night at the MSD board.
Yeah, we just got here with it last night. I've been on it all morning. I was leave here in a few minutes. I got a conference call on it. But yeah, the representative that put the bill out, teacher,
Tusher, yeah.
he said it wasn't gonna affect anything. And yet his substitute bill got UPD right after.
Wow.
So,
So they're trying to do away with do away
What's,
with uniform.
what's the cheapest way to go? Is it cheapest to go with like West Valley City to,
That's what they're trying to figure out. In fact, I talked to the chief this morning, we got a meeting later on. It's so efficient the way it is now. I don't know why they'd wanna change it.
Yeah, it don't
You
make
take
sense.
all the people that are in UPD, you repaint all their cars, reissue them new uniforms. I mean,
yeah, they did that one, they did that when they went from Salt Lake County over to Unified.
Well, this
More
would force
than
it back to
likely,
the
you would
was.
go back to, Salt Lake County. It seems to be that Sandy, Riverton, some of those cities are the ones pushing it, because they think unified police get more benefits than they get.
See, and there's a fight going on too, tell me if I'm right or wrong, but they're, right now with Rosie, they're saying, no, you're Salt Lake County Sheriff, so they're gonna put her into the jail and then bring probably that guy that lost to her, put him into the Unified, as,
Well, no, Unified will go away completely.
Unified will go away.
This county sheriff's always gonna be there, 'cause she's got the jail.
Yeah, but they were trying to segregate, say, well, you're Salt Lake County, but yet it's Unified Police, so probably I'll go over to Salt Lake County, I bet,
Biggest
yeah.
problem is she can't be the sheriff and the chairman of Slovisa.
Right,
Oh,
Slovisa is the process
yep,
that's used to collect taxes to pay. She can't be both. She
Right.
can't negotiate with herself.
right,
And so she's willing to step down from the Slovisa. But the fact that she's an elected sheriff means a lot.
right.
All the sheriffs in the whole state are behind the fact that you have to have an elected sheriff.
So do you think it would think Unified would go away and then it'd be just Salt Lake County?
That's a possibility. There's a lot of things in the works right now. Nobody knows what's gonna happen until they see where this bill ends up today.
Wow.
didn't it
And
used
it
to
may
be
not
Salt Lake
pass,
County?
Yeah,
It used to be Salt Lake County, right?
but see, when they formed Unified Fire Department, then they came up with the Unified Police Department, wanting all the cities to join and be unified.
Well, and this is seeking to undo that. The current bill, as it's drafted now, would just remove Sheriff Rivera and make some other things, but, the substitute, we understand, it would just, well, what it would do, it would eliminate the statute that authorized the creation of UPD. But the corollary concern to that is if they do that to UPD, they could also do that to UFA.
Right, right.
And so,
Look at all the money.
yeah.
It's a lot of money.
So is it only affecting the police department or the fire department also?
No, right now, well, we haven't seen the substitute amendment, but our understanding is that it would only affect UPD. But, again, that's not directly impacting you, but it is gonna impact, who you call for police service. If it goes through. We don't know if it'll go through.
Okay.
And we thought everything was going smoothly until yesterday. When that substitute bill came in, everybody just scrambled to try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, it's generated a lot more opposition than the first one did, by far.
Okay, so our next board meeting is gonna be March 16th, 2023 at 10 o'clock.
That's what I got.
The third week.
The third week, it's the third week, because it's conference weekend.
Okay.
Okay, so someone want to make a motion to close?
I can make a motion to meet.
Are we
immediately.
going to close session?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to meet immediately in closed session, to discuss character, professional competence, physical, mental health of an individual pending a reasonable imminent mitigation or purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, including any form of water right or water shares pursuant to Utah Code 52-4-204 through 205.
At 12:29. It's been motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You ready? What time is it? You said
It is 1:14.
1:14. I make a motion to close the closed meeting and reopen the public board meeting.
I second that.
Been motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I make a motion to
Hold on
adjourn
just a
this.
second. Hold on one second. Did we have any other business? And we didn't take no action.
Nope.
So now we'll accept a motion to
About
adjourn
time. Make a motion to
What time is
adjourn
it?
this thing,
at 1:15.
1:15.
I second it.
Ah,